So, did you get the news from Richie Boy? Shaun asked. Caleb grabbed his glass of water and took a short sip. About his internship? Yes, I did, he said. When did he tell you about it? Shaun asked suspiciously. Last night, Caleb said. Shaun nodded his head. Okay. He told me that he called me first, Shaun explained. You're dead set on retaining that best friend status, aren't you? Caleb asked, amused. I mean, I'm not bragging or anything, but I've known him longer. But I'm not going to fight you for him or anything like that. I'll let him choose, Shaun said. You're talking about Richard as if he's a dog, or a little child being forced to choose which parent to go to during a divorce. You understand that he's a person and not a possession, right? I can't steal him from you because he doesn't belong to either of us, Caleb said. Shaun sighed. Caleb, this is not what I wanted to talk about today. Richard getting an internship was supposed to be a short anecdote. Do you understand? Anecdote. Caleb cocked his head. Do you understand that you come off as sort of an asshole sometimes? I'm sorry. I'm not having that great of a day. I feel funny, Caleb, Shaun conceded. Okay, is there something wrong? Caleb asked. Shaun chewed on his words, trying to decide where to begin. Okay, let me just dive right in. Yesterday, there were these kids, seniors in high school, and I served them. And as soon as they came in and sat down, they realized who I was. They were like, hey, aren't you Shaun Hunt? You're in Young Folks Comedy, right? And I nod my head and I modestly tell them that is correct. And they start going on and on about how cool I was and how they thought that YFC was the shit when they were freshmen. I can't believe you're serving us right now. This is crazy, one of them said. Before I can respond, he abruptly asked for a Sprite, and I take the other three people's drinks orders and blah, blah, blah. The interaction comes and goes, and I understand what they were doing. The concept of a popular guy serving them food was too much for them to handle. I understand that. They're young, it's fine. But let me just explain the other situation that happened. Later, last night, this couple comes in and says that I look just like Donald Glover. Are you familiar with Donald Glover? Shaun asked abruptly. I am, Caleb nodded. Good. So this couple says I look just like Donald Glover. And something about the fact that 2 hours ago I was being recognized for doing the same thing as Donald Glover was doing when he was my age, with just as much success as him, and the fact that I was now being compared to him, like he's my successful doppelganger, it made me feel sad, Shaun said. He said the words before he was even aware of what he was saying. It was a new trick for Shaun. I feel sad. He had not known that was the emotion he was feeling until he said it out loud. I didn't know how sad that combination of events would make me feel, but I feel it. I'm sad, Shaun said, frowning. That's understandable. It was something you had a very huge passion for. Something that you wanted to succeed in, but didn't. It's not hard to comprehend why you would feel that way, Caleb said. I hate that you use past tense. You say it was something that I had a huge passion for, Shaun said. Do you still have a passion for it? No. Maybe. I don't know. I'm jealous of Richard, Shaun blurted out. Caleb waited for him to continue. I'm jealous of him, Caleb. I'm so fucking mad. I'm so fucking envious of him. He's going to school for something that he truly wants to do. He's making steps to achieve life goals. Life goals! What is the point of life if you have no passion, Caleb? Can you tell me that answer? Shaun asked. I can tell you that a lot of people go through life without a passion. I can't tell you with full certainty the varying degrees of happiness that they experience on a day-to-day basis or in terms of lifelong fulfillment, Caleb said. Shaun dropped his face into his hands. I don't know what's going on, Caleb. My relationship has fallen apart and I'm so fucking scared. I'm fucking terrified of waking up on my 36th birthday and wanting to kill myself because I'm so fucking unhappy with my life. Every decision I make feels like the wrong one. Every single one. Whenever I do something that is socially acceptable, like get a full-time job or go to college, people compliment me. They say, good job, you're a fine asset to this society. Keep up the good work, and I want to scream. I want to run and hide and scream at the top of my lungs. I don't want to be an upstanding citizen of our society. I don't want to have a job that pays me six figures that I can't fucking stand. I don't want that, what other people want. I want to be happy. I want to be happy, Shaun said desperately. He looked at Caleb for support. Caleb stared back at him with unemotional eyes. That comforted Shaun. Caleb did not pity him. Why am I so unhappy, Caleb? Shaun asked. You're not doing anything that makes you happy. I think that's quite simple. Every decision that you've made this year has been to the benefit of others. You went to college to appease your new girlfriend and your parents. You don't have to feel too horrible about it, however. You simply just have to get back on track. You can't just wake up one morning and expect to feel happy. You have to actively work at it. You have to cross things off the list. You have to be satisfied with yourself and your life before you can experience happiness. That's not too tall of an order, Caleb said. You think so? Shaun asked. Sure. You're a semi-intelligent guy. This is simply just a case of problem solving. The problem that you want to solve is lifelong happiness. So we can start with asking one question. Tell me your happiest memory. Tell me the moment when you thought life was just all it was cracked up to be, Caleb said. Wow. That's an interesting question. I've always had two competing memories where I just was extremely content with myself. Both were when I was in high school. The first one, the one that makes sense, is my senior year. I got a chance to perform Hamlet's famous monologue, To Be or Not to Be, to an audience of about 300 people. It was in the Performing Arts Center. It was part of some fall arts festival or some shit. Anyway, my drama teacher gave me the opportunity to perform that monologue with no strings attached. I got to walk on stage alone and perform however I wanted to perform. No direction. And I remember sitting alone in the main school building, in the theater room. I had like 2 hours before I was due to be on stage, and I remember that those 2 hours before I performed were literally the most contented 2 hours I had ever experienced in my life. I just sat there in a large, empty room alone, waiting to perform in front of a large audience. And I was so happy because I knew I was going to do a fantastic job. I wasn't nervous or scared. I was just happy that people would see me doing something great. I remember walking on stage in the dark after some choir or small band had just cleared off. I remember walking to the center of the stage in the dark in socks. The people were out in front of me. I couldn't see them, but I knew they were there. I could feel them. I could feel how many there were. And at that moment, a second before the lights came on, that was my happiest moment. It was the knowledge that 300 people were looking directly at me, waiting for me to amaze them. It was the knowledge that I knew I would not disappoint, that I would exceed their expectations, that I would be recognized as having done something great, Shaun said. What's the second one? Caleb asked. Shaun laughed. The second one is a lot less romantic. I always felt happy whenever I was about to hook up with a chick who had never seen me shirtless before. It was always these fat girls coming over and getting in my bed, and I'd be making out with them, feeling the rolls of fat in between my fucking fingers, and I would just think of how much of a treat they're in for when I take my shirt off. I would make such a sexy display of the act too. Not like a striptease, I would just take it off very slowly, like I was unveiling a very prized possession of mine. And the reaction I would get from them, that's what I lived for. The look on their faces when they ran their hands over my abs and chest. The awe. I wanted them to feel lucky. Lucky that they got to see this. I know it sounds conceited, but that's it. Those are my happiest memories, Shaun said. Now, between those two memories, which one would you say is more important? If you could only have one experience for the rest of your life, would it be performing in front of hundreds of people every night and then marveling at your brilliance? Or would it be taking a different girl home every night and her marveling at your body? Caleb asked. Shaun frowned. Well, both would be really nice. I don't see why I can't have both. We're speaking hypothetically. In the real world, it's implied that if you are a successful stage actor, you would get some amount of pussy. But from a hypothetical standpoint, you have to choose one or the other, Caleb said. Shaun debated for a moment. Is it sad that I want to say the latter? Granted, it just might be because I'm not getting that out of my current relationship right now. Sinem never marvels at my body or any of the things I do to come off as an awesome guy to have sex with. It's quite frustrating. I can honestly tell you that I think that if I had sex with 10 girls within 10 weeks and I got the same reaction I wanted from each of them, I would probably get very bored with it very quickly. But at the same time, I can't imagine being at the height of my acting career and not celebrating it with my favorite pastime of plowing females. Sex is far too important to me to give up, Shaun said. That's fascinating, Caleb muttered to himself. What's fascinating? Shaun asked suspiciously. How different people are from myself. Just how you refer to sex as your favorite pastime, I find that to be absolutely fascinating. I, myself, have no interest in sex. I find it to be something that I need to do when my physiological urges demand it of me. However, I want to get it over with as fast as I possibly can so I can go back to doing something more productive with my day. I prefer masturbation over sex just because it's quicker, Caleb said. Shaun's jaw dropped. I've always known you were a weird guy, Cale. This cements it. We don't talk about you that often, but you, yourself, are an interesting character. But I'm not the one constantly trying to reinvent himself. You are, which is why we're not talking about me, Caleb said. Good point, Shaun agreed. Okay, so let's call sex with gratified women a necessity to your happiness, but one that's once become addressed, you would no longer think about that concern, Caleb said. I'm ashamed to say that's the truth, but yes, that sounds about right, Shaun said. So it sounds like to me that the one passion that you do have aside from sex, which we have already concluded would become an afterthought if you got it more regularly and the exact way that you wanted it, you want to act. Your only other passion in life to date is acting. You like the feeling you had when you were performing in front of a crowd. So you just have to recapture that feeling, Caleb said. I've thought of that, but I don't think it's that simple, Caleb. I'm not obsessed with acting. I'm so sure that it's not a passion of mine when I compare the thoughts in my head to the actors that I envy so much. They talk about acting as if it's an art that they are in love with. They say that they act because they couldn't be happy doing anything else with their lives. The only reason I want to act is because I'm good at it and I like the attention I get. But it's not a fucking passion. Richie has a passion. Richie has a drive. I'm disgusting. Caleb, I'm a fucked up person. I really am. And I've always been aware of it. I've wanted to be famous for as long as I can remember. I've wanted people to look at me with respect and adoration because I never got in high school. The people that I did get it from were fat females who were lucky to have someone like me give them the time of day. I wanted to be famous to get that from everyone. I want to fuck hot girls and get the same look from them as I did with the fat ones. That was my drive, Caleb. That has always been my drive. And every time I get a more attractive girlfriend, that drive ceases in the blink of an eye. I don't want to be famous anymore. It's not about money, or even fame, or the craft of acting. It's about getting what I deserve. I want a hot girl to feel lucky to have me. I'm a loser, Shaun said. Go back to acting, man. Seriously. You could do other things, but you won't get the amount of satisfaction that you will get from acting, Caleb said. Why not? Shaun asked curiously. Caleb shrugged. You don't care about other things. You could be a lawyer just like your dad. You could do well in it and garner the respect of your peers, but it won't mean anything to you. You have no interest in living up to other people's standards. You want to live up to your own. You want people to give you the credit that you deserve. Succeeding in anything won't make you happy. Succeeding in the things that you care about will. Go back to acting, Caleb said. Go back to acting, huh? And what about Sanem? Shaun asked. I think you already know the answer. You don't love her anymore. That's quite clear. Break it off with her. Tell her it's not working out. That you want your life to go in a different direction. Tell her you've been unhappy and that you want to work on yourself before you can be in another relationship, Caleb said. That all sounds so fucking cliche. I've never been good at breakups, man. Plus, I'm such a selfish asshole. I'm always afraid of breaking up with a girl and not finding a replacement. It's a huge fear of mine. It's what keeps me in shitty relationships long after the expiration date. It's horrible, I know, Shaun said. I think we can both agree that you're a pretty shitty person when it comes to being in a relationship with a girl, Caleb said. It doesn't start out that way. I have such good intentions in the beginning. I wanted to give her everything, Shaun said. And what happened, Caleb asked. I gave her everything. And I never got it back. I've discovered that I'm not so much of a giver. I'm more of a taker. I'm a very, very gracious receiver of gifts. You should see my face whenever I open up a present, even if I don't like it. I like getting things. Legs used to give me things. She was a good girlfriend, Shaun said. You've called her a whore before, Caleb said. She was a whore, but it didn't stop her from being a great girlfriend. If she wasn't so fucking insecure, I'd still be with the bitch, Shaun said. I'm sure you'd be whittling away at her self-esteem even as we speak, Caleb said, smiling. Yeah, with my dick halfway down her throat, Shaun grinned. Well, listen, I thank you a lot for taking time out of your day to talk with me. I'm going through something. I really don't think acting is the key to all my troubles, but I'll think on it. I have to go see my dad. That's always fun. Anything specific? Caleb asked. He wants me to move back in with him, Shaun replied. That's awfully nice of him, considering the circumstances that you left under, Caleb said. Yeah. We'll see what the stipend is. I think I'm using that word correctly, Shaun said. Not really, Caleb grinned. But I'll let you get to it. Shaun paid for breakfast. They left IHOP in his car. He dropped Caleb off. They said their goodbyes. 10 minutes later, he was pulling into his father's driveway. He stared at the house that had sheltered him for his entire high school and middle school career. His father had painted the shutters yellow, and the door, bright, pale yellow. Shaun shook his head slowly and got out of the car. He walked past his father's black Cadillac and trotted up the steps to the door. He knocked and rang the doorbell. He didn't have a key anymore. His father opened the door moments later, leisurely. Hello, son, he said in this gay manner that Shaun had grown so accustomed to. Hi, Dad, Shaun said. His father stepped aside to allow him to enter the house. He closed the door behind him. House looks nice, Shaun said, giving a quick sweep of his surroundings. He hadn't been in the house for over a year. Why, thank you. I've been slowly working on restoring some hospitality to this structure. Not to say anything bad about your mother, but she took a lot of the furniture when she left, he said with an exaggerated smile. Yeah, she did. You should have seen what the house looked like the day after she left. Well, you did see it. It was a skeleton. It wasn't a home anymore, it was just a house, Shaun said. Exactly right. I'm impressed that you are now able to see the distinction. I've been working on making it a home once again. Let me give you a quick tour. His father waved Shaun to follow. He led him through the dining room. Shaun recognized the new dining room table. It was a pale contrast to the one that his mother had taken with her. Shaun had bought an identical one with his grandfather during his 3-month stay with him in Florida. He remembered that it cost less than $100, chairs and all. Worth every penny, Shaun thought sarcastically. The kitchen looked more or less the same. It was missing the ornaments and memorabilia, but the stove was still there, and the fridge. Not much more to a kitchen than that. His father took him up to the second floor. Shaun peeked into his old room. The walls that were once painted a dark shade of purple were now red. The room was bare save for his old rug and dresser. Shaun laughed at the adjacent room, which had been his brother's. He had gotten off worse. The walls were pink. A crib stood in the middle of it. Shaun shook his head. Save the best part for last, his father said, looking up towards the third floor. I'll ask you kindly to take your shoes off. Shaun slipped them off and made the ascent up the third flight of stairs. His head flooded with memories with each step. The third floor. Everything had happened on the third floor. The first time he ever saw a female's breast was on the third floor. The first time he got head. His first ejaculation. The first time he was drunk. He knew something was different when he got to the landing. He looked up at the closed door and saw a thick maroon carpet at the edge of the wooden steps. He proceeded the rest of the way, intrigued. He opened the door and was amazed by what he saw on the other side. A bedroom fit for a king of Mount Holly. The large family room had been turned into a master bedroom. A king-size bed lay in the center of all of it. A large fan hummed overhead. Shaun took several steps in. His feet sank into the plush carpet. A large flat-screen TV sat in the corner of the room. It was playing Lord of the Rings. Shaun could tell within seconds that it was the two towers. He had seen each one seemingly hundreds of times. He looked at his dad and laughed. This is pretty amazing, Dad, Shaun said. His father hopped onto his bed and sprawled out. I had wanted you to see this. This is what I had always intended when I first moved into this house 10 years ago. This was my vision for this space. But like always, your mother had her way, and we see how that worked out. Well, I think it's really nice, Dad. Good job, Shaun said, taking a seat on a brand new couch that was positioned in front of the large flat screen. Thank you. You were given the chance to take a look at my home and how I like to keep things. I don't have women coming in and out of the house at all hours of the day. I want this house to be a home again. You see that I am neat, that I am attempting to be clean and keep things in order. If you think you can do that, then I'd love for you to move back in, his father said. Okay, well, let's start talking about that. First off, I feel there is something that I should address. I'd like to apologize for the way things turned out when I last lived here, Shaun started. His father waved a hand at him dismissively. You can forget about that. If I wasn't over it, then I wouldn't have invited you back here, he said. I believe that, but still I just want to officially say that I'm sorry for my behavior. I'm sorry for lying to you about me attending college. I'm sorry for the disrespect. I honestly thought that I had a job in New York waiting for me. I clung to it even after I knew it wasn't going to happen. I was immature and it was very wrong of me, so I'm sorry, Shaun said sincerely. Okay, enough said, his father said. Moving on, as far as moving in with you goes, I certainly do have an interest in doing so. I like the idea of splitting my monthly rent in half. In fact, the only reason I feel minor reluctance is the fact that I'm not sure if I want to give up my privacy. At the current place that I'm living in, I have the whole second floor to myself. Dick doesn't come up there, so it's quite convenient for me and my girlfriend. Having said that, I have no clue how much longer me and Sinem will be lasting, so this whole conversation might be a moot point, Shaun said. Trouble in paradise, huh? His father sat up and crossed his legs. You could say that. I think I'm just discovering that I'm not getting what I bargained for out of this relationship, Shaun said. And just what did you bargain for? His father asked. That's a great question. Tension, I guess. Respect. It sounds ridiculous that I'm even saying this out loud, but I guess that's the truth. I don't really feel respected. I can't get her to want to do things for me, Shaun said. Like what? It's going to sound ridiculous, but you'll probably be the only person I know who will understand. My last girlfriend, Jess, when we first started dating, she would give me head every single day for the first week of our relationship. She would make sure I wouldn't leave her presence without me having an orgasm. Sinem, I tell her I love head. I tell her lots of things. I have to ask her like 5 times for her to do it. And then when she does do it, it's like half-assed. It just feels like I'm constantly competing with her to get what I want. She asks to see a movie that I have no interest in seeing, but I do it anyway because I think that's what relationships are about. Sacrifice. Then when I ask for a 10-minute hand job, she acts like she's too busy to do it for me. I feel like I'm going crazy. The contrast between a girl who was willing to give me everything I wanted before I even asked for it, and this girl who doesn't even thank me when I do things for her. I guess it's just too much to handle, Shaun said. His father laughed openly and gaily. He leaned over and slapped Shaun on the knee. Oh man, you are your father's son. I'm proud of you, he said. What do you mean? Why are you proud of me? Shaun asked, confused. What you're dealing with is an age-old problem that the men of your family have been struggling with since the beginning of time. The men of your family are not built, nor will they ever be, meant to bow to a female's will. You're just now discovering that you are physically unable to. And you're learning this at 21, which is actually ahead of your schedule, he said with a smile. Dad, I've been mean to this girl. I've called her an idiot and a bitch, and then she gives me head willingly, and I hate it. I hate that I have to get mad in order to get her to get what she wants. And I don't think, and I don't want you to think it's just about sex. It's everything. I'd be able to forgive her if she gave me other things I want, but she doesn't. She texts the whole time she's with me. Talks on the phone in Persian to her family and friends for 30-minute intervals while we're at fucking dinner. She's a fucking virgin at the beginning of this relationship. I've watched her grow sexually. And get this. Now she likes sex even more than me. She tries to manipulate me into having sex with her. Just so she can get a goddamn orgasm. Is that not a self-centered bitch or what? Shaun asked. I'm glad you came here today. At this particular moment, I'm happy that I've lived the life that I have so I can give you my lessons. You don't have to make the same mistakes I did. You know I was married when I was 24, right? I was married for 1 year. It was the nicest I had ever been to a girl. I am not ashamed to admit that I was in love with her. A plain Jane. Nothing special about her. Tits were okay, ass was nothing to write home about. Nice legs, I suppose. Anyway, I loved her and I wanted to stick it to my father, who can just be a bastard sometimes. So I gave her everything she wanted. We moved into our own little apartment together. Then I got busy with law school. My attention drifted away from her for a second and then bang. I found out she's cheating on me just like that. He snapped his fingers. Wow, Shaun whispered. Do you understand why she cheated on me? It wasn't because I stopped fucking her. I might have fucked her less when I got busy with school, but I kept fucking her. She cheated on me because she thought she could get away with it. She thought she could do whatever she wanted. Your girlfriend Sinem is heading down that road. You need to redirect it or drop her. A wise man once said, actually I'm pretty sure it was me who said it, but I am a wise man, so. A wise man once said that women want what they don't have. Balls. They see that men have them, and they see how proud men are of them, and women become jealous of them. They hatch schemes to collect them from the men. Understand this, and you don't need to remember anything else I tell you in regards to women. Once they collect your balls, they have no more use for you. You're as good as dead, his father said. Shaun wanted to tell him what he was thinking. He wanted to tell his father that she had already collected his balls, but he was too ashamed to say so. He was too embarrassed. I wore clothes that she picked out for me. I did that. I never thought I'd do that, Shaun said numbly. His father reached and slapped his knee. There. It's better to learn at 21 what you're not capable of putting up with than when you're 50. Learn from this experience and make sure not to repeat it. You know what I do? Whenever a woman asks me for something, I do the opposite. A woman asks me to put it in her pussy, I put it in her ass. And when asks me to get on top, I tell her to get the fuck out. They don't get to make requests around me. What I give them, they will accept and smile. I've had sex with about 20 females since me and your mother separated. Some of them I haven't talked to in 2 years, but let me ask you this. Do you think there's a single one that I can't call up right now and have them come over within 20 minutes of me calling? Do you think there's a single one who left my presence not wanting more? It's because they don't own me, and they know they never will. They love the opportunity to keep trying, and I just sit back and smile while I crush them. Literally and figuratively, his dad smiled. Shaun felt despair. I've done that before, Dad. I've treated girls like shit, and they gave me whatever I asked for. I wanted this one to be different. I wanted to do things for her, and she would do things for me. I'm not happy when I'm mean like that. Are you telling me there's no such relationship where I can treat a girl with respect and not have them treat me like shit? Shaun asked desperately. Not for our family, son. That's not the way we were built. Look at your friends and their relationship. Take note of what goes on. They'll probably be happy when their girlfriends give them a blowjob. They'll probably think they're lucky. Meanwhile, the women are just laying in thinking of how they got their man wrapped around their finger. So I'm doomed to a life of stripping girls' self-esteem away. That's what you're telling me, Shaun said. He felt tears in his eyes. His father smiled and got off his bed. Don't think about it too much and let it come naturally to you. You're a hunt. You have a big dick and women want it. Make them work for it. Make them think they have you right where they want you, and then you fuck them in the wrong hole. His father grinned. All right, I gotta go back to work. Shaun stood up from the couch numbly. He looked at his father as if he was staring at a 50-year-old doppelganger. He studied his droopy face, his bald head and large stomach. He looked at his punishment for being born Shaun Hunt, his inheritance. Shaun noticed the king-size bed behind his dad. It was empty. The house was empty save for the two people standing in front of each other. His mother was gone. So when are you moving back in? His father asked. The lease is up next month. His voice sounded as if it was a mile away. His mind was somewhere else. Shaun felt his feet carry him down the stairs. He felt his hands grabbing his shoes that rested at the base of the second floor. His father was still talking. Shaun answered sporadically, not paying attention to the conversation. He opened the door of the house and stared through the screen door to the outside. There was no sunlight. The world was gray and cold. Shaun hated winter. He turned to face his father and plastered a fake smile on his face. Talk to you soon, Shaun said. Likewise, his father smiled. Shaun left the house. He heard his father close the door behind him. He took a couple of steps in the direction of his car. His phone vibrated. He reached into his pocket with freezing fingers. Damn, nigga. Ain't heard from you in a minute. What you been up to? The text was from Joe. Shaun took a second to answer. He felt so tired. He had work in 2 hours. He had to finish writing a 10-page paper later that night. Sleep, a voice in his head called out to him. Sleep, it whispered again and again. He looked down at his phone and texted Joe back. You'll get no cries of help from me. I've chosen my fate and am resigned to it. Nice try. Joseph. Joe sat at the desk with his laptop open and his Word document displayed on the screen. Richard typed sporadically behind him in his bed. They were both working on class assignments. Joe leaned back in his chair and stared at Rich. Rich's earbuds were in. Joe stared at him until Rich looked up. He laughed when he did. How long have you been like that? Rich asked, taking an earbud out. Couple of seconds. I just texted Shaun asking him what he's been up to. Look what he sent back. Joe handed his phone over to Richard. Rich quickly read the text. He looked at Joe and made a grimace. He handed the phone back and said, Doesn't sound good. Right? Like, I feel like was the type of shit he was saying before he ran away to Florida, Joe said. Yeah, that's exactly the type of shit he was saying, Rich said. I thought he was doing good, with his girlfriend in school and shit, Joe said. Apparently his girlfriend's a major bitch, Rich started laughing. Last time I saw him, he told me this story of how he drove to her dorm after he had just gotten off work. He got to her like midnight, and it was raining and shit, and he texted her that he was outside the dorm building, and he waited out there in the rain for 15 minutes before she came and got him. What? She made him wait outside in the rain? Joe asked, shaking his head. For 15 minutes. And she lives on the second floor or some shit, Rich said. That's fucked up. I'd be fucking depressed too, I guess, Joe said. My bro would never let me fucking wait. Damn, that's fucked up. Yeah, so I can understand why Shaun isn't too happy with himself, Rich chuckled. He should go back to legs. He was way happier with her, Joe said. She is a fucking idiot. I don't understand why he can't just be single. He fucking goes from one girl to another thinking that they're going to solve his fucking problems. That's not how it works, Rich said, his voice laden with disgust. That's a good point. Shaun should just go on the prowl like he used to when he was in high school. He was happy then, right? Joe asked. Rich shrugged. Yeah, he was happy back then. Titty fucking Carrie Lawler all the time. Yeah, he was pretty fucking happy about that now that I think about it. What the fuck happened to him? Why does he get so depressed like this? It's like a trend. He does it like once a year, Joe said. Yeah, I don't know, man. He's unhappy with his life, I guess. He probably regrets some decisions that he's made in the past. Shit like that. I don't know, Rich said. His life isn't even that bad, though. He works at a fucking diner and has a bitch for a girlfriend. It's not the end of the world. He can dump the girlfriend and get a new job. Why doesn't he just do that? Joe asked. Rich shrugged and kept typing. I'm not going to be surprised if we wake up tomorrow and he's in Florida for another 3 months. Fuck, he might just live there indefinitely this time. Why doesn't he just move to Cali if he's so unhappy with his life here? Why doesn't he go back to acting? That's when he was fucking happy. Fucking girls and acting in YFC and shit. Why doesn't he just go back to doing that? Joe asked. Don't ask me, man. I don't know why anyone does anything. Is Chris happy with his life? Rich asked. I saw Chris this past weekend. He's fine. He has a job and he's with Kate, who is a good girlfriend. He still talks about saving up money for Cali, which is awesome. I don't know why Shaun can't do the same thing. He's so stuck in this idea that this is all permanent. It's not. Everything that's happening right now is temporary. When's the last time Shaun even mentioned Cali to you? I don't think he's mentioned it since he started dating Sanem. Last time I saw him, he was talking about being a lawyer and taking over his dad's business, Rich said. That's fucking sad, man. Maybe one of us should call him and try to talk to him. I don't want him to jump off a bridge or something, Joe said. He won't, Rich said. Joe didn't say anything more. He looked at the time. It was 3:30. He stood up and stretched. I gotta go run an errand real fast. You trying to come? Joe asked. What's the errand? Rich asked. I have to drop off some film at this place in Upper Manhattan. They have to digitize and whatnot, so I can edit it, Joe said. Oh yeah, I remember that. I did that last semester. What did you do yours on? Rich asked. Me and Chris just drove around Philly getting a bunch of shots of landmarks and shit. I'm going to make it look like an old infomercial from the VHS days and have some shitty narrator say a bunch of inaccurate facts about the city. Like it starts off with the saying that the founder of the city was Michael Jordan in 1991. I don't know. It sounded funny in my head. So you want to come for the trip? Joe asked. I would, but I really have to get this paper done by tonight. Sorry, man, Rich said. It's cool, Joe said. He left the room, and within several long strides he was out of the dorm. He zipped his coat up and found his knit gloves in his pocket. He pulled them out in the front of the elevator and stepped in as the door slid open. An attractive girl stood in the corner with a small box with legs and arms crossed in unison. She stared straight ahead as Joe walked in. He took the corner opposite hers. He looked at her out of the side of his eye. She continued staring ahead, bopping her head slightly to a rhythm only she could hear. Joe got off the elevator and left the building. The cold air hit him as soon as he stepped outside. He put on his gloves and headed off to the closest subway. The building was tall and nondescript. Joe entered into the lobby and took the elevator up to the 3rd floor. He got out and walked across the hall to the door that was ahead. He opened it and took a step inside. A man sat in front of 3 large computers. Rolls of film were stacked high around him. Joe knocked on the side of the door. The man looked up. Are you here for pickup or drop-off? The man asked. I'm dropping off, Joe said. He produced his own small roll of film and crossed the small room to hand it to the man. The man accepted it and quickly read the label. He let out a soft chuckle and looked up at Joe. Come back in 2 weeks for it, the man said. Joe nodded his head and went to leave the office. And tell Professor Zim his favorite alumni says hi, the man called after him. I wanted to give you a quick compliment before you left. I thought your project was quite inventive for the assignment that was given. I'm not used to seeing people incorporating comedy into the work, which is somewhat a shame. Film students these days are taking things too seriously. Yes, film is an art, but art doesn't always have to be so pretentious, Professor Zinkotowicz laughed. Thank you. I've always thought that it was a lot harder to make a short 3-minute film and turn it into something serious or dramatic. You don't have that much time to set up a story, so it always just comes off rushed or forced. I've been doing comedy for a while, Joe said. His professor raised his eyebrows. You have a body of work? He asked. You could say that. My friends and I have been in this comedy troupe since high school, Young Folks Comedy. We're on YouTube and we've won a couple of film competitions in Philadelphia and LA, Joe said. Interesting. Would you write down the name for me? My memory isn't what it used to be. I'd like to see more of your work. I still have friends in the industry that are keeping their eye open for fresh comedic talent. If it's any good, we'll see, won't we? The professor smiled. Joe wrote down the name for him, thanked him, and left. He got back to his dorm feeling proud. Rich was lying in bed, his laptop resting on his chin before Joe arrived. He sat down on the only chair in the bedroom and stretched his arms. How was class? Rich asked. Pretty cool. The professor showed everyone's film projects today. Everyone thought mine was dope, of course, Joe said. Oh yeah? That's cool, man. They laughed? Rich asked. They did. It felt good. I'm going to put it on YouTube later today when I get home, Joe said. Alright, I'll peep it, Rich said. The fucking professor? Professor Zinkotowicz? You've had him, right? Joe asked. Yeah, I had him last semester. He's a cool guy, Rich said. Yeah, he pulled me aside after class was over and personally complimented me on it, saying how nobody in his class ever tries to do comedy and how I executed it well and shit, Joe said. That's awesome, Rich said. Yeah, I told him about Young Folks Comedy. He said he was looking forward to checking it out. Pretty soon he'll be sucking my dick over that shit. In all honesty, though, I'm kind of hoping for a repeat of last year. Remember how it got to that point where we didn't even have to show up to class? Joe asked. Rich snorted. Yeah, we would just turn in our latest YFC video and get 100, he said. God damn, so her dick. My mom didn't believe me when I told her that shit was happening. She thought I was skipping class. Joe shook his head as he reminisced. I doubt that's going to happen here, though. It'd be cool if it did, Rich said. Yeah, you might be right. Joe took a moment before standing up. Well, I guess I should probably head for the train station. Are you sure you don't want to come? It should be a good time. YFC and Piff. It'll be a good break from the monotony of school life, Joe said. Yeah, thanks, but I'll pass. I don't want to pay for the commute. Plus, I'm meeting Shaun here 2 days from now, Rich said. Oh, word? What's Shaun coming up here for? Joe asked. He wanted to celebrate me getting an internship. He wants to go back to Minetta Tavern and get those burgers that we never got, Rich said. That's what's up. Damn, that sucks that you're going on Sunday. I worked that day. Y'all should go next Sunday so I can request off, Joe said. Apparently Shaun had to make a reservation like 3 weeks in advance to get a table, so that's probably not going to happen, Rich said, laughing. That's understandable, Joe said with a smile. All right, well, I'll tell Chris you said hi to in that case. Have fun on Sunday and all that shit. Will do. See you Monday, said Richard. Joe closed the door behind him, leaving Rich alone in the small bedroom. He closed his eyes for a moment and contemplated going back to sleep. It was 3 p.m. Richard's day was over before it began. He had no classes, no homework assignments, nothing. Travis went home for the weekend as well, which meant Richard would not be getting any invites to gay bars or parties in Brooklyn for the whole weekend. He was alone with nothing to do. Rich read the email that was open in front of him once more. Reading it gave him satisfaction. Hello, Richard. We'd like to thank you for applying for the MTV2 internship position. After interviewing you and reviewing your resume, we have decided to offer you the position. We think that you would make a fine addition to our team. If you choose to accept, please email me back as soon as you possibly can, as we would like to get the process underway immediately. We feel that we are offering a great opportunity for you and others like you in regards to acquiring hands-on experience in the film/entertainment industry. Please get back to me today with your intentions. Sincerely, Gwyneth Halsey. He had just gotten it, before Joe had entered moments earlier. He stared at the email with a mixture of emotions running through his body: shock, satisfaction, anticipation, and fear. His response was short and sweet. Thank you for notifying me. I would love to take the position. Please let me know when you would like me to come in and get started. Thank you, Richard Casimo. The world was quiet around him. The small window did little to brighten the room around him. Richard felt as if he was in a cage. It didn't feel like New York was outside these four walls. He didn't hear the cabs honking and beeping on every side of him. He didn't hear the people. It was silent and dark. But he wanted to feel happy. He reached under his pillow and retrieved his phone. He was surprised to see that Shaun had texted him sometime during his conversation with Joe. He read it. Hey man, I'm really sorry but I can't do Sunday. Some shit has happened in my life that I don't really want to talk about right now. I promise I'll tell you all about it in the near future and I'll make this up to you. I'll schedule it for another 2 weeks from now. I'm sorry. Rich frowned. He texted him back quickly. Sure man, don't worry about it. I'm here if you ever need to talk. He put his phone down beside him. Now what? He thought to himself. He thought of calling Caleb, but he would just be getting out of work, and from there he would go home and work out for 2 hours. Rich decided against it. He grabbed his phone and called his father. He put the phone to his ear and closed his eyes as he listened to it ringing. His father answered on the 5th ring. Rich! His father said happily. How's it going? Not bad, not bad. Just a little bored, I guess. Wanted to call and check in. How are you and Mom doing? Rich asked. We're both doing good. She's at the grocery store right now, but she should be back in a bit. How are you doing, buddy? His father asked. I'm good. School is good. All my work is finished for the time being. So you remember how I got that internship at Dan Fogler's production company? Rich asked. Sure. Have you started yet? His father asked. Well, they ran into a problem with the new location they were planning on moving into, some type of electrical fire. Anyway, I hadn't heard from them for like a couple of weeks, so I decided to just forget about it, Rich said. Makes sense. Sounds like they don't know what they're doing. It'd be a waste of time. It'd be a waste of your time anyway if they're unorganized. You should keep going, though. An internship would look good on your resume. I did keep going. I actually just got offered an internship at MTV from now until the end of the school year, Rich said. You did? His father asked excitedly. Yeah, I just got the email, just now, Rich smiled. That's fantastic, Rich. I'm happy for you. You lucked out. MTV is going to look way better than that actors thing. Good job. Thank that electrical fire, he said jokingly. Yeah. I'm pretty shocked that it happened so smoothly. Like, I decided 2 weeks ago that I was wasting my time waiting for this one to start. The next day I went to my first interview for MTV. A week later I went to a second one, and today I got the email telling me I got it, Rich said. Well, that's great, Rich. That's very good. You still got Shaun coming up to see you on the Sunday? Did he tell you he ran into us the other day? He said he was going to take you out to celebrate, his father said. Yeah, that was the plan. He just canceled on me, though. He said something serious came up, Rich said. Oh. His father sounded worried. Well, I hope he's okay. Yeah, I told him to call me if he needed anything. He said he was going to reschedule it for 2 weeks from now, the celebration. It's kind of funny if you think about it. He made plans to celebrate with you about your production company internship, but now when he gets there, you'll have already started at MTV. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm pretty excited about it, Rich said. Well, so am I. Your mother's going to be very proud, his father said. Yeah, tell her I said hi when she gets back. I guess I'll go get some food now, Rich said. Okay. Good job, Richard. I'll talk to you later. His father hung up. Richard put the phone down and stared into the blank computer screen. It was in sleep mode. He couldn't put it off any longer. He hit a random button. The screen instantly came back to life. Rich navigated away from the still open email and typed into the search engine, xvideos.com. His dick reacted simultaneously as the laptop loaded the homepage. It was fully erect within seconds. Richard spent an hour on the site. He started with clips of one of his all-time favorite porn stars, Alexis Texas. Sasha Grey came next. He ended on Kelly Devine. The image of her enormous ass bouncing up and down on a dick as she screamed in ecstasy was what spurred Richard's climax. He came on his stomach and hand as the video continued playing. He looked at it in disgust and quickly exited out of the webpage with his unsoiled left hand. Rich reached beneath his bed and procured his personal tissue box. He pulled several tissues out and proceeded to dab at his stomach, removing his own semen. His laptop slipped down between his thighs askew. He could see his reflection on the screen. His hands digging inside his belly button with the tissue. His face concentrated. Rich snapped the laptop shut. He thought of getting food. He thought of leaving his dorm and going out into the world for food. Chipotle was around the corner, as was Subway. His new favorite pizza shop was literally across the street. He could walk out, pick up the pizza, and be back in the dorm in less than 10 minutes. Cereal, the small voice in his head decided. Cereal would be the food he would eat. That was even closer to than the pizza. Cereal, cold cereal. He breathed in and out. His shirt was still pulled up onto his chest. He could see his flabby stomach rising and falling. His dick stared up at him, soft and shriveled. He put it away beneath his boxer briefs. His stomach grumbled. Rich wanted to address it, but somehow he felt incapable of moving. He felt himself sinking into the bed. His entire body felt dead. Rich could feel his heartbeat slow and steady. The rhythm was like a soft melody that played throughout his body. It lulled him to sleep. Nothing had changed when Rich awakened. His stomach was still out and crumpled tissues were strewn all around him. He brushed them off the bed and pulled his shirt down. There was no light coming from the window marking the time. Richard was now in total darkness. He rolled out of his bed and shuffled off to the bathroom. His body ached from lack of use. He peed and flushed the toilet. Cereal came next. He grabbed a bowl and poured honey bunches of oats into it. He grabbed a spoon and the gallon of milk from the refrigerator. He sat down at the table and began to eat. He ate sloppily, slurping up the milk when he ran out of cereal. He poured himself seconds and then thirds. He stared straight ahead as he lowered the spoon into the bowl and brought it up to his mouth again and again. When Rich was finished eating, he put everything back and washed the bowl and spoon in the sink. He cursed under his breath when he noticed that the dishes Joe had used the day before were still lying in the sink unwashed. He turned his back on it and tried not to let his anger get the best of him. He returned back to his room. He wondered what time it was, but then realized the time didn't matter. He grabbed his laptop and plopped it on the desk and took a seat in the chair before it. He watched an episode of Downton Abbey. His phone had gone off in the middle of it. It was too far away for Rich to reach, lying on his bed. As the credits rolled and the option to play another episode appeared, Rich got up from his seat and grabbed his phone. The text message was from Joe. He had texted him twice, once while Rich was asleep and again while he was watching Downton. It was 9:45 p.m. I uploaded my class project onto our YouTube homepage for you to peep, the first text read. What you think? The second text read. Rich put the phone down and reluctantly exited out of Netflix. He navigated to the Young Folks Comedy homepage and saw Joe's project in the recent videos category. He clicked it. Rich leaned back in the chair and watched Joe's work. It was shots of Philadelphia with a voiceover saying ridiculous things. It was a funny concept, but simple all the same. He caught a glimpse of Chris walking through a crowd of people staring at the camera awkwardly. Rich laughed. He missed Chris. He texted Joe back when the video ended. I thought it was good. Funny. He squeezed his eyes shut and leaned further back in his chair. His neck was stretched, his face pointed up at the ceiling. He wanted to scream. He thought of his internship and tried to use that knowledge to console him. A couple of days from now, I'll be doing things, making steps to move forward. A couple of days from now, I'll be busy and none of this shit will matter. Rich opened his eyes and looked back at the laptop. He was still at the Young Folks Comedy homepage. He clicked the View All Videos tab. There were 64 of them. 64 videos that Rich and his friends had made over the course of 4 years. His stomach turned as he looked at the thumbnail pictures of some of them. His mouse hovered over one in particular. A Debt to Pay. It was one of their first. It had 2,000 views. Rich clicked it and began watching. It was a long one, 10 minutes. He could remember the day he edited it. They had shot the whole thing in one day, and Rich had spent the whole night editing it. Shaun had come over early in the morning and was the first one to watch it. Rich watched his younger self and shook his head in pity. The acting was horrible. The editing was horrible. The entire video was horrible. And he was a part of it. A sudden urge swept through Rich. He deleted it. The whole video. He deleted it off the site. Rich stared out the window into the dark night and waited. He expected something to happen. He expected to feel something. He felt nothing. The urge did not go away. It was still in him. An urge that he had to satisfy. Rich clicked another video. Just stopping in. He deleted it. Still nothing. Rich clicked another one. Eye candy. It was deleted. Rich continued on for another hour. He watched some of them before passing his judgment on them. Few made the cut. The early music videos they had made, Rich destroyed. The few skit ideas Rich had written and directed were all discarded, save one. The process was therapeutic for him. It felt like cleansing. As each video was deleted, Richard felt pressure being removed from his chest. He would click on Shaun's smiling face and delete the screenshot and the video forever. He was down to 20 from the original 64. He was feeling good. It had been a long time since Rich had felt so awake, so productive. He smiled as his mouse pointer circled over Christopher's face. It was screwed up in concentration. His lips were puckered forward. The screenshot was of him talking in mid-sentence. His phone vibrated as he clicked the delete option once more. He looked down at it. The text was from Chris. "Missing you, buddy," it said. Christopher. "Missing you too, man. I hope you're having a nice time with Joe and Shaun. Tell everyone I said hi." Chris read the text from Joe and slipped his phone back into his pocket. He shivered from the night air and stuffed his hands into his hoodie. "Rich says hi, everyone," he announced. Shaun coughed as he blew smoke out of his mouth and handed the weed back to Chris. "Feels like I haven't been on this porch in forever." "Tell Rich I said hi," Shaun said. "What's it like being back with your dad? Is it shitty or what?" Chris asked. "It's not that bad. We kind of keep to ourselves. I knew I wouldn't have a problem with him. I rarely see him on a day-to-day basis, and whenever I do, it's just a quick hi and then that's it," Shaun said. "That's what's up." "Where's Dick Hunt at again? Air Force?" Chris asked. Shaun snorted. "The Air Force thing lasted for like 3 months. I think the biggest attempt he ever made to get in was to call them twice or some shit. No, he's not in the Air Force, just like I knew he wouldn't be. He's house sitting at a friend's apartment for 6 months. Ironically enough, the friend actually left for basic training," he said. "That is kind of funny," Chris said. "That's cool, though. Dick Hunt on his own and shit. I bet he's loving it." Could you imagine Dick Hunt living on his own? He's probably walking around in his underwear with his balls falling out and rubbing against every surface in that fucking house, Joe said, laughing. "Yeah, you're probably right. I should have warned the guy," Shaun said. The three laughed. Chris passed the joint over to Joe. Joe took a hit and blew out. They sat in silence. Chris blew warm air into his hands and rubbed them together. "So how have you guys been? I haven't seen you both in like forever. Tell me some news." "How's being a manager, Chris?" Shaun asked. "It's cool. The money is good," Chris said. "That's it? That's all you have to tell me? What about the authority? Do you get to order people around?" Shaun asked. "Yeah, I do get to do that. I've never really been down for that kind of thing, though. I really just want people to do their jobs, that way I don't have to worry about it. My fucking boss Danny is crazy strict. It's annoying too because he takes it out on us, the managers. When an employee messes up, we're the ones who get yelled at. And then I have to yell at the employees," Chris said. Shaun laughed. "Holy fuck, you actually sound like a manager. I have to be honest, in all the years that I've known you, I've never once pictured you as becoming a manager of anything. It's shocking. And you only worked there for a fucking year. How on earth did you accomplish that?" Shaun asked. Chris shrugged and smirked. "I guess Danny just saw my hidden talent or something. I mean, he made a good choice. The other people that he could have promoted wouldn't do half as good as me. Just the amount of responsibility you have to sign up for when taking the job is ridiculous. I have to be up before 5 o'clock every fucking day. It fucking sucks." Chris winced at the thought. "Damn. Well, I'm proud of you, Chris. You're a bigger man than me. I wouldn't be able to do it." "Do you work tomorrow?" Shaun asked. "Yep. I had to decide to come here tonight with the full knowledge that I'd only be getting 5 hours of sleep at the most," Chris said. "I hope it was worth it," Shaun snorted. "Your turn, Joe. How are you and Rich doing up in New York? How's that going?" "It's pretty awesome. I really like school because it's a lot more concentrated on film than any ever. So like every class I go to, I get to learn a lot more about the craft and shit," Joe said. "Are you schooling the niggas? Showing off that YFC talent?" Chris asked. "Hell fucking yeah. I handed in the project that me and you did, and the teacher was like sucking my dick over it. Said he wanted to see more about my work and shit," Joe said. "That's awesome," Chris said. "Yeah, and living with Rich is pretty cool, besides the fact that he does nothing but sleep all day," Joe said, laughing. "My man sleeping all day?" Shaun asked. "Or watching shitty Downton Abbey," Joe said. Shaun burst out laughing. "Yo, he's so serious with that show. He tells me about it like it's the greatest show on TV. I watched the whole first season. It wasn't that great." "Right? I tried out the first 2 episodes and was just confused. Like, why is he so obsessed with it? Joe asked. It's because Richie Boy found it. He does the same thing with music. He'll give me bands to listen to, and then I'll find a band that sounds just like the ones he gave me, and I'll suggest it to him, and he'll never fucking listen to them. But if I don't say anything, he'll start listening to a band that I found 2 months ago and start bragging about how he found them. Which is ridiculous if you ask me, Shaun said. I get it. The man doesn't want to be suggested things, Chris said. Nah, it's not that. He doesn't want to come off as a follower. If any of us tell him to watch a show, he won't do it, and if he does, he'll call it shitty. But if we don't tell him to watch the same exact show and he starts watching it, he'll fucking go on and on about how great it is and how he found it first. It's annoying, Shaun said. Just a little, Joe said. This reminds me. I was talking to GT the other day, and he told me he finally mastered the software on his computer to finish Galaxy Boys, the digitally animated web series I told you guys about like a year ago. I'm saying if we all drove over to his crib during spring break or some shit and recorded the voiceover work for our characters, we'd never have to think about it again. Easiest filming day ever, Joe said. I doubt it'll ever get made, Shaun said bitterly. With that attitude, it won't, nigga, Joe said. Seriously though, 2 hours on a day during spring break and we'd be done. The script is dope, pilot would be dope, the show will be dope. Don't you miss posting shit on Facebook and getting our egos stroked by our fans? Joe asked. All 87 of them, Shaun said sarcastically. I just miss filming in general. I miss making shit. I'm like going through withdrawal. You know the absolute best part about filming, the best perk? It was always the best excuse to getting out of hanging out with a female, Chris said. Holy shit, yes. I would do the same thing with Kirsten and Jennifer. They would get the same treatment. They'd be trying to hang out with me and I would just slam filming in their face. And the best part about it is that they have no idea how long filming actually takes. You can just make them think that you're going to do it all day if you want, and then they can't say shit about it, Joe said, giggling. Yeah, that was awesome. Speaking of which, Shaun, me, and Joe are taking the birds down to AC 2 weekends from now. You should bring your Persian bitch and come. It should be a good time, Chris said. Thanks for the spontaneous invite, but unfortunately I will have to decline for 2 reasons. First, I broke up with Sanem, and second, I'm supposed to visit Richard 2 weekends from now, Shaun said. You broke up with Sanem? Joe asked, shocked. When did that happen? Last night, Shaun said. Why? Joe asked. Shaun sighed for a moment and looked at Chris and Joe. He laughed. It's a really long story, Shaun said. I want to hear. I love breakup stories, Chris said. Yeah, why did you break up with her? I thought you were like in love with her or some bitchiness, or some shit, Joe said. I thought I was too, Joe. Until I just couldn't take it anymore. Okay, so basically what happened was we had been having some trouble over the past couple of months because she was just getting way too demanding of certain shit. Just stupid shit that I thought I could put up with but realized I couldn't, Shaun said. Like what? Joe asked. Like tapping at my mouth when she wanted me to eat her out, Shaun said. Chris and Joe looked at each other and burst out laughing. Holy fuck! Are you serious? She would tap your mouth when she wanted you to eat her out? Joe asked, blinking back tears. Shaun nodded his head in shame. And you would do it? Joe asked. I did the first couple of times, and then she just kept on doing it. And the length of time that I would be down there just got longer and longer. It started out as like 5 minutes, then it became 20. And I think one time I actually ate her out for like an hour. I was falling asleep by the time I was done, Shaun said. Chris and Joe exploded into uproarious laughter. Chris could not believe his ears. He almost thought that Shaun was lying, but he figured that no one would lie about something like this. I'm so fucking high, Chris thought. Holy fuck, I can't believe this shit. She was making you eat her out for an hour and you did it? Joe said, shaking his head. Yeah, she made me her bitch, Shaun said sadly. So how did you break up with her? What happened last night? Joe asked. Last night was just the straw that broke the camel's back. The night started with a long talk about all the shit that she was doing that I couldn't handle anymore. I told her that I couldn't eat her out for an hour at a time anymore. Just shit like that. I had been telling her that shit needed to change. Like, she's on her phone all the fucking time and she kept promising that she was trying to get better at shit like that. Anyway, so she had discovered this curious interest in weed during her time at Rutgers. So after a long talk about how I wanted her to treat me better, I sound like a fucking female, I know. We smoked weed. We got high and we decided to go to Domino's for some pizza. She offered to buy it, and I'm thinking, okay, we're off to a good start. She had only touched her phone twice instead of the usual 100 times within that hour, Shaun said sarcastically. Alright, so things are looking up. I'm waiting for the crescendo, Joe said. I'm getting there, Shaun said. So on the way to Domino's, she says that she has been thinking of finally deciding to do anal, which had been a thing that I had been quite vocal about for a long time just because I think she has a super nice ass. She does, Chris thought. And now I'm like super happy because I'm thinking I'm about to eat some free pizza and breadsticks and have anal sex for the first time right after that. And we're talking about it for like 20 minutes about how I'm going to do it in such a way that she doesn't get hurt. And I say to her, if you're joking about this, I seriously don't want to talk to you for the rest of the night. Mind you, she's super high. It was like her second time smoking, and you can just see the delayed reaction of everything I said to her. So she just starts apologizing and going on and on about how she was joking, that she didn't know I would get so offended. But I was offended. She was laughing the whole time. And I was fucking annoyed because she got my hopes up for something I was really looking forward to, Shaun said. Yeah, bitches shouldn't joke about anal sex. Niggas take that shit seriously, Joe said. So I'm trying to tell myself that I shouldn't let this ruin my night. I'm trying to convince myself of that. I'm telling myself it's not her fault. She just didn't know it was a big deal. We get back to the dorm and I'm literally actively trying to get myself in a better mood. I lay down on the bed, I start playing some calming music, Sufjan Stevens, and it starts working. I'm feeling like more relaxed and shit, and I forgive her, Shaun said. So then what happened, Joe asked. So then she gets in the bed with me and starts kissing me. Mind you, I'm not horny in the slightest. That shit left the moment she stomped on my dreams of anal and then laughed about it. I was content just listening to Sufjan and falling asleep. But she starts kissing me really aggressively, like more aggressively than I'd ever seen her. She straddles my leg and literally starts rubbing her clit against it and moaning. Out of nowhere. I had never seen her like this. Most of the time she's really reserved and shit, but she was just super horny. It was ridiculous. And I'm aware of every second of it. I'm literally watching this bitch go from kissing my face to sucking on my neck to licking my nipples, all in the course of like 10 seconds. And then I realized it would be extremely fucked up for me to deny her sex that night, though I had no interest in fucking her. I see how horny she is and I decide to get on board. I start kissing her back aggressively. I flip her onto her back and I rip her panties off. I'm thinking she wants me to fuck her aggressively. So I just shove my fingers into her and she's soaking the fucking bed. Like it's literally gushing out of her pussy onto the sheets. I never felt a bitch be so fucking wet before. So I start finger fucking her and she's just moaning. Her eyes are squeezed shut and I can just see she's in another fucking world of pleasure. And I'm a little annoyed because I'm still thinking about how Sufjan Stevens shouldn't be playing with while this whole fuck session is about to go down. Chris laughed at that even though he had no idea who Sufjan Stevens was. So here's where it starts going downhill. I stick my dick in and I start fucking her. And it feels amazing, by the way. That white shit that comes out of the girl's pussy is all over my dick. All over it. And I'm high, so you know that it feels amazing. So no more than 5 minutes goes by before she whispers into my ear, Shaun, in that fucking Persian accent of hers. She's moaning the whole fucking time. Shaun, she says, I want you to go down. Just for 2 minutes. Joe shook his head in disgust. Yo, don't tell me you fucking did it. Don't tell me you fucking did it. Holy fuck, this is a good fucking story, Chris said. Maybe I'm just high right now, but this is like an awesome story. No, it's a dope story, Joe agreed. It's the Shaun Hunt fucktale. So you know it's got to be good. Only it's like the opposite of all of his other fucktales, which makes it even better, but like worse at the same time. Shaun went on. She asked me to do it, and I look at her, and all I can think is, she's enjoying the shit out of this. It would be wrong of me to not help her get as much enjoyment from this experience as she can. So I start eating her out with the full knowledge that I would be down for at least 20 minutes. She's grabbing my face and shoving it into her clit and shit, and I'm just counting down the minutes before I can't do it anymore. I rationalize that for every minute that I'm eating her out will be a minute that she will spend sucking my dick. Then all will be right with the world. So I eat her out for 20 minutes and my jaw is sore as shit, so I stop. I stand up and I drag her by her hair over to my dick. No! The fucking Huntmaster about to destroy her. Holy shit, how does this end? Joe asked, clapping his hands. I start throat fucking her, but within less than a minute she's pushing at my body to get my cock out of her mouth. She starts coughing and shit. FY, I've throat fucked her multiple times throughout the course of our relationship and she's never coughed from it. So I go to put it back in her mouth and she jams her mouth shut tight. I'm literally pressing my dick against her closed mouth and she's doing her best to turn away from it. So I do some rationalizing. I say to myself, maybe her throat is dry and she can't handle it tonight. So I tell her to give me a hand job, which is the only compensation I can think of. This is what she says. Okay, but first can you go down for one more time? Just 2 minutes. I'm really close, just 2 minutes. Oh man, this is literally breaking my heart, Chris said. He leaned back in his chair and clutched his knees for support. Yeah. So I just stare at her in shock. By then I didn't even know how to say no anymore. I really didn't. So I eat her out for another 5 minutes. The whole time I'm just feeling broken. My dick is literally shriveling up with every passing second. It feels like it's going to drop off. I come up after 5 minutes and she uses her hand to try to push me down again. I tell her that it was over 2 minutes and that she needs to give me a hand job, so we switch positions. I lay down and she gets above me and starts doing it. A minute goes by and her head is leaning against the wall. It keeps nodding back and forth like she's about to pass out from exhaustion. Her hand is all loose around my dick and she's grabbing her wrist with her other hand to keep it going. So in a last-ditch effort, I think of the most degrading thing I can do to her in an attempt to save face with myself, Shaun said. There's no saving face after that, bro, Joe said. You think I don't know that? Shaun snapped at Joe. He continued. So I push her onto her back and I stick my dick in her. She's already dry at that point and she's looking at me like she's confused. I ignore her and fuck her for like 30 seconds. I pull out and come on her face, and here's the end. Some cum gets into her mouth, so she runs over to where the toilet paper is and spits the cum into that. After that, I was just done. She gets in bed and kisses my forehead and tells me how much she loves me. She passes out within a minute, and next thing you know, she's literally snoring right next to me. I'm on the fucking single bed in the corner, huddled like a fucking scared little kid, doing my best not to touch her, Shaun said. Damn, man. I am truly sorry for you. Seriously. That is a horrible experience, Chris said. Yeah. I felt like a used whore. I was almost mad because I didn't get paid, Shaun laughed bitterly. That's really shitty. I had no idea I was going to hear this kind of story when I pulled up to your house tonight. No idea, Joe said. So what did you end up doing? I fucking left. It was 1 o'clock in the morning and I left. I snuck out while she was sleeping like a whore. The last I saw of her was she was literally sprawled out naked on the fucking bed looking pleased with herself. And I left her there. I have to tell you guys, this has been a really hard day for me. I don't feel like a man anymore. I feel like that bitch literally took scissors and chopped my dick off. I don't know if I'm going to be able to recover from something like this, Shaun said. You will. Now that you left her, you can recuperate. You're not even going to think about it after you fuck a couple of girls. Get back on your kill count, Joe said. Yeah, man, you can bounce back from that, Chris agreed. Holy shit. You should hit up legs and start fucking her again, now that you're single, Joe said excitedly. I thought of that. She was the first thing that popped in my head when I left her dorm. Holy shit, the train ride back to Hamilton was the most depressing thing ever. I just sat with my head against the glass wishing it was okay for men to cry, Shaun said. That is depressing, Chris agreed. Fuck legs, man. She was the best. She was your favorite. Think of how easy it would be to call her up and start fucking her again. It would take a minimal amount of effort, Joe said. I don't have it. I don't have the energy for it. I texted her on the train ride. We've been talking today, but she's with fucking Calvin, and I just don't have the energy to break those two up. Plus, if she's happy, then who am I to try to mess it up? I'd fuck her a couple of times and we'd pick up right where we left off, both of us unhappy, Shaun said. You're a stronger man than me, Shaun. Whenever Nicole texts me trying to hang out with me, it's so hard not to just say okay and have her come over and suck my dick. Fuck, it's hard, Chris said. When's the last time she texted you? Joe asked. Like 3 months ago. She does drunk texts talking about how much she misses me and shit. I know that if I wanted to, I could text her right now and fuck her within a couple of days. Fuck, she was so hot. Chris dropped his head in submission. She was, man. Nicole was hot, Joe said. Yeah, and I was fucking her. Raw dog. She's probably had so much college cock in her by now, though, Chris said, shaking his head. Yeah, you're probably right. Fuck her, though. She was kind of a bitch, Joe said. Hell yeah, she was a fucking bitch. Every fucking party I ever threw, she would just literally walk into my house and not even acknowledge my fucking presence. No manners. No manners at all. I never liked her. Don't get me wrong, she was hot, Chris, but so was Rachel, and you never fucked her even though she wanted to, Shaun said. Rachel and Nicole were friends, man. I couldn't fuck both of them, Chris explained. Then you should have fucked Rachel. She was hotter, Shaun said. No way. Nicole was definitely hotter than Rachel, Joe said. I agree, Chris said. Of course you do. You fucked her. It doesn't matter anyway. You're with Kate and those days are over. It's best just to forget about them and look to the future. Pick out her wedding ring and look forward to the bachelor party. That's about all you have left, Shaun said. Damn, Shaun. You just throwing shots at Chris because your bird took a shit on your chest and you suppressed, Joe said. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm sorry, Chris. You know I love Kate. I think she's awesome, Shaun said. Yeah, she's awesome, Chris said absentmindedly. He looked at the time on his phone, then looked at Joe. Probably time to activate dip mode. Yeah, it's pretty late, Joe stood up. Shaun, I'm sorry for your loss of testicles, but I can promise you that they will grow back. Pipe a couple of bitches and you'll be fine. Doctor's orders. Definitely, man. You'll be fine. It was just shitty blow, but learn from it. Learn from the experience, bro. I gotta be out of here. I'm looking forward to 4 hours of sleep, Chris said. Chris stood up quickly, followed by Shaun. Shaun crossed the small space between them and hugged Christopher tightly. Seriously, I hope you savored those times you went around fucking hot-ass bitches, because they aren't coming back. Our fame ended when we graduated high school. It's not coming back, Shaun said. We'll all have plenty of hot bitches to fuck when we get to Cali. You don't have any excuse not to come now that the Persian is out of the picture, Joe said. Right, Shaun said. Chris and Joe left Shaun's house. They parted ways when they got to their respective cars. Chris shivered as he got in. He started his car and waited for it to warm up. He pulled out his phone and wandered through it. He reread Kate's last text. Just wanted to say I love you. Have fun with your friends. I know you've been working hard, so I hope you enjoy it. Good night. Chris sighed. His breath came out in front of him. He went through his contact list and highlighted Nicole's name. He opened up a text message. Chris hesitated and then started typing. I've been trying not to text you for the last couple of months. Tonight is the night where I couldn't control myself anymore. He stared at the text. His finger hovered over the send key. He thought of the last time he had had sex with her. It was in the house that he was sitting in front of. He had known at the time that it would be the last time he would fuck her. He tried to make it count. Why did I leave her? Chris asked himself. I left her to get back with Kate. Kate was his rock. He said to himself again, I left her for Kate. Chris exited out of the text and drove home. Chris was not aware of falling asleep that night. He only knew that his alarm was going off, signaling for him to get out of bed. It was 4:45 in the morning. He got out and got dressed. His khakis had been discarded on the floor the night before. He pulled them on. He pulled into the Coastie parking lot at 5:15. He trotted over to the store with his hands deep into his armpits, shielding them from the cold. Danny nodded at him when he entered. I guess we're working a half day today, Danny asked as Chris took his hoodie off. Chris looked at his boss with mild irritation. I'm supposed to be here at 5:45. That's when my shift starts, he said. The other manager appeared out of nowhere, the other Chris. He walked over to the two with a large smirk on his face. You know better than anyone we can't get the amount of work that we need to get done in time for us to open in 15 minutes. So why bother saying anything? The taller, uglier Chris asked. Right, you're right, Chris said dismissively. You bet your ass he's right. Now why don't you go in the back and get started? We're short one barista today. Hank fired Bianca yesterday, Danny said. Why was she fired? Chris asked. She gave Hank an attitude when he asked her to clean the lobby, so he told her to clock out and come back for her last paycheck. It was ugly Chris that answered the question. Chris shrugged. He and Bianca had gotten along. He had sold weed to her once or twice. Oh well, he thought. He went in the back and put on his apron. Chris busied himself with preparing the store for the day ahead. His brother Anthony arrived at 6:01. He walked in with his head down. Chris clucked his tongue at him. You can't be coming in late all the time, man. You're going to make me look bad, Chris said jokingly. Anthony scowled at him and joined in on the work within minutes. Anthony had replaced Chris as a head baker when Chris received his promotion. The two worked silently side by side, kneading the dough and baking the fresh bread. Chris stocked the inventory, made fresh coffee, did a quick sweep of the lobby, and got behind the food line by the time the first customer entered at 6:25. This was the routine that Chris had become accustomed to in the past several months. He would walk into Coastie at 5 and look forward to going home and smoking weed by 5 or 6 that night. He envied Anthony. He got done at 2. Every day he would watch his brother work his old job and clock out at 2 o'clock on the dot while Chris stayed behind and ordered around female baristas and fat bakers. The fact that he made more money than his older brother did little to make him feel better. He was in a perpetual state of tiredness. It was all he knew. Work and rest. And the rest never caught up with the work. How could it when I'm working 13-hour days? Chris asked himself. At 11 o'clock, Chris stepped into the bathroom. He splashed his face with cold water and dried his hands. He reached absent-mindedly into his pants pocket. His fingers brushed against something foreign. It was a plastic bag. He pulled it out in curiosity. It was Adderall. Chris remembered where he had gotten it the day before. His coworker, Kevin, had sold it to him. It helps you focus, Chris remembered Kevin saying to him. He looked at himself in the mirror and shrugged. What the hell, he said to himself. Chris opened the bag and took 2 out. He slammed them down his mouth and bent over the sink to wash it down with water. He returned to his position at the food line. A small line of customers had formed at the counter. Danny watched Chris as he grabbed a fresh set of plastic gloves and put them on. You go away and the whole place turns to shit, Danny remarked. Chris didn't respond. He worked. He watched the orders pile up on the computer screen and he busied his hands with the making of sandwiches and pizzas and soups. He wondered when the Adderall would kick in. By 12 o'clock he realized it had. Chris had become one with the task. All he saw were the orders in front of him and the ingredients beneath him. He was a machine. Danny made a comment that Chris couldn't even discern. He figured it was a compliment but didn't bother to ask Danny to repeat it. He worked. Order after order throughout the entire lunch rush. Hours passed like minutes, and Chris smiled at his newfound discovery. Adderall. That day, Chris didn't notice when Anthony clocked out and went home. He was too focused on cleaning the dirty dishes in the back. Trish came in at 3 o'clock. She said hello to him with a large smile. Customers stopped coming in after 4:30. Chris thought the effects of the drug were beginning to wear off as well. He stood at the front counter surveying the lobby and kitchen for problem areas. Trish approached from behind and tapped him on the shoulder. "So are you sad that Bianca got fired?" she asked, batting her eyelashes at him. "Somewhat. She was cool peoples," Chris responded. "Is that all you thought of her?" Trish asked. Yeah. Why?" Chris asked, confused. "That's just a shame, that's all." Trish's smile grew larger. "Why is it a shame?" Chris asked. "She had a thing for you," Trish said slyly. "She did?" Chris asked, shocked. "Yes, she did. A big thing. Let's just say the only thing Bianca's going to miss about working here is watching your ass walk by her." "Those were her words, not mine," Trish said. Chris smirked. "Are you sure you're not just projecting your feelings onto Bianca?" Trish's jaw dropped. She playfully slapped his shoulder. "Shut up. I know you have a girlfriend. Seriously, she was really into you. Ask anybody. She told all of us about a plan to get you to come over and suck. She told us all of us about a plan to get you to come over and smoke with her, and she was going to suck your dick." "Are you serious?" Chris asked, incredulous. "Yep. She said that she was going to get your balls and your dick in her mouth at the same time," Trish giggled. "Wow," Chris said. He could feel an erection growing. He wondered if Trish would be aware. "I should probably walk away." "Yep. So are you going to call her now?" Trish asked jokingly. "If it were you who said that, maybe I would call her. Big maybe, though. I'd have to be really depressed and drunk and high and horny all at the same time." "Doesn't happen that often," Chris said. "Well, you're not going to hear me say anything like that, so don't get your hopes up. I'm a good girl," Trish said. "Never heard that before," Chris said sarcastically. "I am going to turn and walk away now, just because I think this conversation has run its course." "Good talk, though." Chris started walking away from her. "Hey, Christopher," Trish called after him after he had gotten some yards away. He turned and looked at her. She smiled shyly. "The pants you're wearing were Bianca's favorite pants. She said she was going to make you walk around her house in them before she did it so she could just watch your ass."